Okay, today's kitchen cabinet. Let's have a look at the tools before we get started. A couple things you want. Tape measures. I use two tape measures that are the same brand and size. Someone told me once that if one person is measuring something over on a tape measure, another person is cutting wood or something like that, they want to have the same exact tape measures just in case there's any differences or variance in the way that they're done. So you always have accurate measurements. Square, this is going to be put up against the wall so you can make sure that the cabinets are going to be nice and square to the wall. Any other building that you do, any other 2x4 infrastructure that you put in place, just to make sure that it's nice and square. Okay. Screw gun. We're going to put the cabinets back to the studs. They're going to be connected with screws. Let's look at the types of screws we're going to use. Usually use a 3-inch. There's the 3-inch right there. This is a 2-inch screw. The reason for the 3-inch screw is sometimes the stud isn't right behind the back of the cabinet. So when you put the screw in, you might have to put it at an angle to get to it if it's off on the edge, something like that. Use a impact driver to put these things in, especially when you put in these 3-inch screws. These have a star on the end. You can probably see it. Hopefully you can see it. What that is, it's going to allow me to put a good force on it without slipping out. I'm not a Phillips head fan. This gun, this rigid gun, is probably one of the most powerful impact guns. My favorite ones. Shows me how much battery you have left, has a light in the front, and has hooks on the side so I can hook it on my tool pouch. Also has a spot in the back to hold the bit. Just a great all-around gun. I've got all the rigid tools. Okay, so that's screws. Going to need a chalk line. That's going to be to put the cabinets on the walls, the uppers on the wall. Going to need some caulk. Now the caulk is not really for the cabinets, but it's for the wall. So right before you put the cabinets on, right on the sheetrock at the bottom, just caulk all of that in there. And what it's going to do for you, it's going to stop bugs and stuff coming in. Right? If we have a good seal between the sheetrock and the floor, I don't have any ants coming in, things like that. Okay? And then we'll also put some foam inside the sheetrock around the where the hot water comes in, cold water comes in, and where the drain comes into the sink. Okay, that's what the caulk's for. Hammer. I don't know. I like to use a hammer every once in a while. Right? Knife. Open the boxes for the cabinets. Maybe cut off some of the shims. We'll look at that in a little bit. A little square. If you can't get the big one in there, this is called a speed square. This is usually used to cut wood. Still nice to set up against the wall. Make sure something's square. Okay. Now the most important thing about cabinets is the levels. So I'm going to show you the levels that I use. Okay. I built this box. My son gets mad at me because you got to pour the levels out. These are my kids, basically. If I had a choice between these and my kids, they know it would be a tough decision. Okay, these are my levels that I got. I got them over at Home Depot. The only place that sells these Empire levels that I've seen. Okay, this is a 2-foot level. I've got a 4-foot. Now we're going to usually use the 4-foot for the cabinets, and it'll give me a little bit more reach across the cabinets. You can see I get across them. And then also in the front, the cabinet's going to come out 24 inches, so it's going to at least use half of this level. I could use the 24-inch level. I've actually used, now the reason I use these Empire levels is their accuracy. I don't know if you can read that on the side there. And what that means is these levels are accurate within, what is that, 10 thousandths of an inch for every inch. So every inch along on this level, the accuracy of how level it is 10/1000ths of an inch. So you could see, you might be able to see that bubble. You can see it's difficult for me to keep the bubble in the center. You want to keep it between those two lines because this level is so accurate, it's hard for me actually to hold it still and to get the bubble in the middle. That's why I use these. This is the most important tool you're going to have in your toolbox for doing cabinetry. This one is a 6-foot level. This one I mostly use to level out doors because it'll fit the door frame, and check 2x4s. Levels also have a bubble. They're called bubbles. Up here to check if they're level, they have the one in the center right here. Okay? Definitely don't want to set a level on something, hit that with a hammer and have these things bounce or shake. You don't want to hit this bubble here because they're very accurate. You want to be very careful. When I put them back in the box, I put them down like that. Okay? Empire also makes this little guy right here. This is called a torpedo level. I don't know if it has the same accuracy. I use this for plumbing and things like that. It's nice because you can see the bubbles here. This is really when you're in a bind and can't get in somewhere on a cabinet. This is also nice because it has a magnetic back. It's also can attach to things that are magnetic, stuff like that. Okay, this is the 8-foot level that I use, and what we use this one for is this one will go all the way across the cabinets, and you'll also check your accuracy in the cabinets when they're L-shaped, and I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, this level right here, to give you a price on it, is $99, I believe. Yeah, actually it was 99 bucks, $100. This level right here was $50, the 4-foot level. So if you have at least this 4-foot level, you'll get your cabinets pretty accurate, and the 8-foot level will just add that much more accuracy to it over a bigger distance. Yeah, some people can do it with a string line, other stuff like that. Yeah, you can level them out, but there's nothing like a good old-fashioned nice level. Okay, so those are the tools that we're going to need. Another rule is don't ever lean your levels because they're going to fall. Okay, so one other thing we use is chunks of sheetrock. This is 1/2 inch thick, and I'll show you later that there's 1/2 inch in between each of the cabinets. Okay, so got the tools that we're going to use. Let's go look. I've already hung a few cabinets, put some of the bases in. Let's see what we did. Okay, a couple things I wanted to hit still before we get started. One was it's actually 5/10,000ths of an inch, the accuracy on these levels. I said 1/10,000th of an inch, which 5/10,000ths is pretty darn good. This is the 24 inch, but you could also see these are the bubbles I was talking about on either side. Okay, and then there's the bubble in the middle. The other thing I forgot to talk about in tools are these shims. These are door shims. You could get them pretty much anywhere. These are going to be the ones that we put behind the cabinets, which I'll show you. These are the wooden shims. Really can't stand them because they don't break very easily. They're just a pain in the neck. These right here are composite shims. These are the greatest thing in the world. Snap real easy. Unfortunately, they used to sell them at Home Depot and Lowe's, and then I guess everybody started buying the cheap junk, and nobody really sells these anymore. I can't find them. If I could, I'd definitely buy like a whole case of them. These are really nice. These right here are sheetrock spacers. These actually are strips of cardboard that they put behind sheetrock for spacing. I like these because when I shim doors or I shim cabinets and stuff, it's nice and flat. I can just add 2 or 3 together. I don't have to worry about putting shims in the way that you have to put shims in. Shims are supposed to go like that against each other, and what they'll do is they'll give you a thickness as you're moving them. They get a little bit thicker. Well, these here, I just add a little bit to them. They get a little bit thicker. Here's some other wood I usually keep around. This is some 1/2 inch wood. I forgot even where I got it a long time ago. I keep some of that. I keep some short ones. I keep these short pieces because when I'm doing any work, I can set it right behind a 2x4 and it's not going to hang over the edges. Okay, that's so I cut these to the correct size. I cut these guys on the table saw, or on my chop saw, also to get those to the right size. So the shims are important. We're going to be using those behind the cabinets. So let's look at the cabinets now, the ones that we already put in. So these are the ones that we already have in. These are the ones over here that aren't in place yet. These are, as you can see, are just loose. These guys here, we've already screwed down to the wall. And this right here is a little wall that I built. Now the reason I built this wall is to get the dishwasher in here. So that's going to be a 24-inch, standard 24-inch opening. And I'll show you how we did that in a little bit. Now this down here at the bottom, that's what I was talking about caulking. So you caulk down between the sheetrock and the floor right there. Make sure all that's sealed, because you know it gets rid of the bugs, things like that. And then what we'll do later is, hopefully you can see that in there, is these holes in the wall right here around all these pipes. I'll just take some insulation, stuff it in there, and then I'll take that spray foam, grate foam, and I'll foam around it. I'm not a great sheetrocker. You can see all the missed gaps there and stuff like that. But I tried to do the best I could. Whoa, actually I didn't do that one. There's a big old gap there. This right here has to be a GFI plug. It's not live right now, so that needs to be changed out. So what we've done is the top part of this plug will be switched for on and off. The bottom part of this plug will be constant. So the bottom part of that plug will go over to the dishwasher, which is over on the side over here, and the top part of that will be switched by the switch up here on the wall. So basically what will happen is the one that's switched is going to be going to the trash compactor in the sink, and the one that's constant is going to be going over to the dishwasher. Okay? How you separate a switch, there's a little bar right here that gets cut. There it is on that side right there, and it gets cut, and that makes it so it's not switched. This one isn't cut yet because it's got to be a GFI. You got to put a different type of plug in there. Okay? So that's all that. We have all the other plugs in the wall. There's a plug over there. Don't put any plugs above the sink. Plug there, some switches. That's going to be some more plugs on the side. There's a GFI that I was talking about. And then the other plug way up here is for the refrigerator. Most refrigerators are 30, 32 inches, 36 inches, so we made a space for that refrigerator. As you can see, that's what the space is here. And then this one down here is for the stove, and it's a gas stove. That's the gas outlet right there. I just covered it with a glove so that we wouldn't get any sawdust in it. Okay. One more thing that was done is there's a plug up here. That's for a microwave. God, I haven't used a microwave in 11 years. We do everything on a toaster oven, but I had to put it in because we might actually sell this house later and people use microwaves. Okay, this right here is the light above the kitchen sink. Now one thing you want to do with lights in a room is you can see that light is pretty close to the wall. The thing is, if I'm standing here in front of the sink and I'm doing some work, I don't want the light to be actually behind me. I want the light to be in front of me so it shines down. That's why you put a light right up here on the wall. I didn't put it right up against the wall. That's in case somebody wants to put some cabinetry against the wall and it wouldn't get in the way. We also, later down the road, I think we're going to just put a hole in that wall right there, and we're going to put in a window. Okay? So, let's look at some of the framing that we've done so far. This right here for the dishwasher is in place. I'm going to set you down right here so you can have a look at what we did. Okay? So, what I did was, it was cheaper for me to take a cabinet, a 9-inch cabinet, since we got all these cabinets on a really good sale. Okay, so I don't have any more, I don't have the ability to get new sides and things like that for edges. So what I did was I used a 9-inch cabinet, took the 9-inch cabinet apart. Now these cabinets actually go together with these little connectors here, and they snap into these little connectors here. So what I did was, we took this side of the cabinet. These were the little connectors you can see right there, okay, that were in the cabinet, and these guys go together like that. They go inside each other, and then the screws together, and what that does is it actually holds the cabinets. When they build the cabinets, it holds them in place. Okay? Well, what we did was we just pulled all that out. It doesn't look real pretty, but what it does, it gives me a piece of wood, and unfortunately the only side I had has these marks in it right here, but we can go to the home store and I'll get a color pen and just touch them, and it'll be good to go. One thing about these cabinets too is they're actually plywood cabinets. The ones that are pressed board are a little bit cheaper and they fall apart a little bit more when you put the screws in. So what I'll do is, this cabinet side, I'm just going to use it for the side right here. We're going to tack it on to this wall, and that's going to be a beautiful side right here for the dishwasher. And then we're going to take these little spacers. I'll show you what the spacers look like. Give me a second, walking behind here. These are the little spacers that come with the kit. I have longer ones, so we're going to get the longer ones. And this is going to actually get put on here just like it's the front of the cabinet. Okay? And then I'll have to put another piece, probably this one, right across the top. And what I'll do is I'll probably rip it on my saw, and I'll make it so that it's the right height. And then the countertop will come over it, so you'll never see that. You'll just see this edge. You have to make sure you have enough clearance in here for the dishwasher. Okay? So that will go here. Now, you have to be watching these measurements that you take on all of this stuff. So let me show you the edge of one of these cabinets and what it looks like. So I want to show you this cabinet because it's a little bit easier to see than those cabinets over there that are in the dark. So the reason I also want to show you is because this is the same side that's on those lower cabinets, but it's cut off because we don't care what this looks like, because this is an upper cabinet and this is going to be the part towards the ceiling. You can see right here are the little locks. The way these cabinets came, they came in a flat box, and then we're actually assembled. The drawers were even assembled, everything was assembled, and we put them all together. Now, the front of the cabinet, it's very important to have a look at how this is built right here, is you could see this cabinet is a 12-inch, comes out 12 inches, right? And across is 12 inches. And you can see cabinets are right on the money. They're not any variance like you'll see in a 2x4 that actually is 1.5 by 3.5. Okay, so this is a 12 by 12 cabinet. But the cabinet, when you're building wood frames back here for it to rest against something, you have to think about it that this right here is 1/4 of an inch. You can see that, that's tough for me to hold that, but is 1/4 of an inch sticking out right there. Okay, so whenever you meet a 2x4 back here, you always have to add 1/4 of an inch, because remember, this isn't flush. Now, when you build the wood frame for this, that frame that I built, and I'll show you in a little bit, this is going to actually stick out a little bit further than the frame, and the frame I built is going to meet right on the edge of this right here. So let's go back and look at that frame that we built. Okay, so this is the frame that I was talking about. This is the piece right here that we're going to be putting on the edge. Okay, let me put that in there, and what you can see is, see how it's coming out a little bit further than the edge of that 2x4? You have to be that accurate with this stuff, okay? And it's not held up because I got a problem in the back of the sheetrock there. But when I put this wood on, I need to have the wood overlap that 1/4 of an inch, just like a regular cabinet did. So what I'm going to have to do is put this piece of wood on my table saw and cut a slot in it so that it'll slip on the side of that and be flush up against that right there. Okay? And the slot I'm talking about can be seen in this piece right here, see that slot in the bottom? Or see the slot in the side right here? That's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna have to cut a slot in this wood right here so that it'll sit on the end of this just like it's a cabinet, okay? So that's how this wall was built. Now, another thing we have to watch out for in cabinets is this little plastic piece right here, okay? Now this little plastic piece, let me get you a little bit closer, okay? Now what happens is, as this piece right here is trying to keep the cabinet square, so you screw it in, and it has this little lip right here, that little plastic lip right here and here. So you can see that lip is sitting a little bit higher than the cabinet. So what's going to happen is when we put our countertops on here, when we put our countertops on, they're going to be resting on these little plastic, this little plastic here. Now, cabinets that you don't assemble yourself are still going to have those little plastic pieces. So what you have to make sure of is this wall right here is a little bit taller or flush with this guy. You have to make sure it's very close, right on it, or it can be just a hair taller. So this one I built flush right here, as you can see, right? So what I'll do is when we put the countertops in, I'll just slip these little shims in here and then break them off afterwards, and the countertop will then be nice and level. But you don't want this to go any higher than the edge of this, okay? And you definitely want to be aware that whenever you do your level, either you set your level on two plastic pieces, one here and one on the other side, or you set your level on the wood side, okay? I prefer to set all my levels on these plastic pieces because that's where they're going to be level, okay? That's going to be where the countertop is going to be level. Okay, so now that's the wall that we built. Oh, one thing be aware of too, or also in this wall down here, is let me show you at the bottom. Okay, come around here a little bit. So every cabinet has a kick plate. Okay, you can see that this cabinet has a cutout in it. Okay, and every cabinet has a cutout in the bottom. Now, what I did was, I took also the kick plate for that one. I pulled the little pieces out of it, and then I'll set this kick plate on here also, right? I'll set it on here and I'll cut it off to wherever I feel like I need to cut it off. And then we'll have a kick plate, and then this piece here will actually start right about there. So what it'll do for us is it'll look like it's a cabinet, okay? Now, I didn't really want to put a little short piece of wood in here because it'll probably break on me. So I just put any size piece of wood I had. I made sure that this was able to screw into both of those. And then you can see what I did was I made sure this top piece was very level back here and in place. And then I just took this 2x4, which is the correct height, and I just screwed it into the front of these two guys right here, and I threw another piece in here to make sure that this guy was level. Actually, I put this in place, then I put this in place on top of this 2x4 right here, so I made sure this was all level and square, and then I came along and just screwed this one in the front. Right? We don't really care what this looks like, it just has to be strong, level, square to the wall, okay? Because it's all going to be covered up. So let's look at how square it is. So this right here, this square is how we got it square, right? I'll put this up against the wall, I put it against the bottom down here, and I made sure this was nice and square to the wall. Now, if you could imagine up top here, this has a little bit of give to it. It's not exactly on the money, but what I made sure of, I made sure that against this cabinet over here and this, and the door, I made sure this was exactly vertical, and then I put my level on it to make sure. One thing I know for sure is the back of this door, I was the one who hung this door, and this door is exactly vertical, so it's pretty easy for me. I just came over and measured 3.5 inches in, and then I put the 2x4 up against those marks. So I know this is exactly level, then I rechecked it against the door, and the door was fine over here. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is, this front floats a little bit. Well, when we put this cabinet top on, right here, I'll take this board and I'll push it out a little bit or bring it in wherever it needs to go, and then I'll put the screws through it into the top. Now the top, I'm actually going to be tiling. I'm not going to go buy the pre-made Formica. I'm going to be tiling it with marble. I just can't afford to put granite or marble, you know, the big pieces on there, because they're like $60 a square foot. I could tile this in marble for about $2 a square foot. I think the granite cost me about $7 a square foot if you include the mortar and include all the other stuff they put on it. So that's how we're going to be doing the tops. So that's this little wall. And mind you, to get this perfectly flat, back in here, took some pretty close cuts. Pay attention to what you're doing, and if this is level and in place, and it's just going to make the installation that much easier. Okay? So let's look at the cabinets now. So what do we do with the cabinets? I marked off the mark right here, and I put 24.5 inches in here. Okay? Now the reason for that is because in this gap over here, I put 24.5 inches, because remember, the front of this cabinet has a 1/4 inch here, and then the piece that's supposed to meet on the other side is a 1/4 inch, so you lose a 1/2 inch. It's very important to pay attention to this little front lip right here. It's going to bite you in the long run. Okay, so what we did was, we put these cabinets down. Let me grab my level. We put these cabinets down. We dropped our level across the plastic part and got it as close as I could. And you can see I'm off. Am I off bit? Nope. That one is just right on the money. Okay? So that's important to get it very close. You don't have to be perfect with it, because when you put your countertops on, you'll be able to put some shims in the countertop and bring it up a little bit. I like to see about 1/8 of an inch. You know, no, I don't like to see it. I mean, but I like not to see anything more than 1/8 of an inch variance when you're leveling your cabinets, because you really don't want to put huge shims in there. It look kind of funny, right? A lot of people just throw the cabinets in and they think the floor is level. Well, let me tell you, we had to shim the fronts of these up because the floor is not level. Even though we put a brand new floor in and the floor is pretty level, it's not level enough for a countertop. Now the reason I care about this being so level is, what if someone sets a tomato down, or what if someone puts a glass down, or puts something round on the counters? You don't want things rolling off, right? You want things to stay where they're going to stay. That's why it's so important. Now, the back of this level, you can see I put it on these plastic parts right here. Okay, that's level. And then we also checked it by putting it this way across the plastic, right? And then we put this over here and over here, check accuracy. Okay. So then, after we put it in, what we did was, I took at the bottom, underneath the cabinets down here, I put in a little bit shims, and let me see if we could, probably can't see that, but underneath the edge of this guy right here, we put little wood shims to get it off the ground a little bit, because it needed to lean back. Okay, so we got that in place. And then we put wood shims against the wall right here. Now you notice I don't put the shims behind this, I put it behind this board, because this board is in a little bit more than this board right here. You can see that goes a little bit past it. And we put our screw in through that back board. Okay, so the screw we put in to hold this went in the backboard at an angle about like this, because as you can see from that mark right here, the sheetrock mark, and I'll show you up top right there, this right here is a stud. It means there's a 2x4 back in the wall. And if you come down and follow down, you'll see there's a 2x4 right here. That's why we screwed it right there. And actually this one went in straight. So this screw went straight through the center of this little back board here, right through it, right into the 2x4, and then I squeezed it up against these shims right here, and then I made sure the front of the cabinet was solid. You could push down on it and it's solid as a rock. Okay? And now this side of the cabinet was done. We come over to the other side, and you can see the wall gave me a little bit of trouble, but we got it all shimmed. This cabinet had actually flushed back, so I was able to just throw the shim in there. Now I'm just going to take a flat saw, and I'm going to cut all these guys off later. So no big deal if they're sitting up. I kind of don't like them sitting down in the back, but in case you're wondering why this cabinet is so big and open like this, this is called a sink base. It doesn't have a back to it, and the sink will go in here. So if you think about it, a sink is going to be sitting down about 8 or 9 inches, and it's going to have everything, so no one's ever going to even see all that stuff up in the corners right here. Everything will be all blocked, and they'll have all their detergents under the sink, stuff like that, so no one will ever see it. So then we got this next one in place here. Got it screwed in. Now I don't have the other side screwed in over here on this side. Now where that can be screwed in, I have to still make that, because there's a stud here, there's a stud here, and there's a stud that was over here that was hard for us to find. You can see we put a couple of screws in here. We finally found it. Okay, so there's no studs behind this. So what I actually had to do is, and it's hard to see down in here, right there, I had to take a screw, one of those 3-inch screws, and put it at a very steep angle to just touch that 2x4 on the side over here, and I was able to catch it. So this got this side in place. Then the next thing I do is make sure I shim it so the fronts are nice and smooth, okay, together. And then if you look down it, you got to make sure that this whole seam is together, it's level on the bottom, everything's good to go. I went and actually pushed this side over at the bottom to make sure the bottom is sealed. So what we haven't done yet on this one is I haven't shimmed up the front a little bit, and I haven't got any screws in this back corner right here. Okay. One other thing you might do, which I've done on my other cabinets, is this piece of wood right here is drill a very thin little hole all the way through this wood and into this wood here. So I drill a hole all the way through this board and a little bit into this board, and then put in like a 2.5-inch screw, and that'll hold these two seams together. Okay? Now, let's see what else we had to do. Let me get one more tool. Okay, right, so got to use what you could use, right? So if you remember, this is a quarter inch, this is about a 1/2 inch, and actually when I pushed these guys together, they were even a little bit bigger than a 1/2 inch. Okay? But what I'll do is, when I was putting the backs of these together, I stuck a piece of sheetrock in here, and then I screwed them together. The sheetrock fell a little bit, and you could see they came together just a little bit more than I really wanted to. But at least I kept them apart as best I could. And there's only these two cabinets, and then there's an empty space in the corner right here. I didn't put one of those roundabout cabinets, something like that. Again, that's also why you want to seal the bottom of the wall down there. You don't want any bugs or animals burrowing in here and building nests, get cockroaches in the corner, stuff like that. Not a good thing. Okay, so I just put a spacer in here. They fell through, but you get the idea. That's what keeps these two cabinets apart when I was screwing that screw into the wall at an angle like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is build a frame. So the frame is going to be able to hit this 2x4 in the corner, and it's going to be able to hit this 2x4 right here. Okay, then what I'll do is the frame that I build is going to come over and touch this guy. Now I'm going to screw these 2x4s in with a lot of force, and that way on this end cabinet right here, I'll be able to come through and put a screw in. I'll probably start the screw a little bit up here, I'll put the screw in and it'll pull this cabinet back in, and I'll put another little shim back in there, and I'll have an accurate cabinet. Now how I know, how I know this cabinet is not in all the way and needs to go in a little bit further is I look at the way the drawer is hitting, and I know that's hard for you to see, but it's missing a little bit right here, which means this side needs to go in a little bit. Okay? And it's just how the door is hitting the drawer is hitting right now. So that's a dead giveaway. So we make sure these seams are very accurate, very tight. Make sure we keep this gap right here. Screw everything into studs in the back. Use a little bit of shims. Keep everything accurate and level. So I'm going to go ahead and build out this next wall. I'm not going to bore you by filming it, but I'll show you what I did after I did. Now these right here actually are just sitting in place right now, like I said, so that I know where I want to build my wall, how I want to do this. You don't want two cabinets to come together in the corner, so I'm actually going to put a bigger piece of wood than this in the corner, and then I'll put another piece of wood here. What the important thing is here is I have no slop here, but this cabinet can move this way or that way because it's not in place yet. Okay, so I'm going to make sure where this one comes, and then I'm going to build my 2x4s up to it, get my infrastructure in place, then I'll put another 2x4s here to rest this piece against it, and then we'll have the corner. So I've got to build some walls here in the corner, so I better get going because it's getting late, and I want to go have lunch. Okay, we'll catch up when I get that built. Hey, one thing I wanted to point out about this 8-foot level is I can put it on this counter, make sure everything's level, and then come across and now I have a nice line on the wall right here. I know exactly where the top of this plastic is to be able to put in my first 2x4. So I'll make sure that this 2x4 is exactly on that line, and then I don't really care about the floor and trying to build. I'll never measure off the floor because it could be off a little bit, so I'll always measure off the cabinets when I put anything to the wall. I'll measure squareness, I'll measure level, everything comes off the cabinets. The floor you kind of ignore. One kitchen I had that the floor was so bad, I actually had to take a planer, electric planer in some areas, and I had to plane the floor down to get it done because I couldn't actually shim up the other side of the cabinet so much. And before you actually put the cabinets down, it's also good to grab a level, whether it's a 6-foot or an 8-foot, and put the level on the ground, and then you can see how the floor lays and where the dips and everything is to make sure your floors are even level before you go ahead and start putting the cabinets in.